Welcome to the Cook County Department of Building and Zoning's webcast on authorities having jurisdiction and governing codes and ordinances. This is going to be the first of 4 webcasts we'll be presenting. These are directed primarily at building professionals and will cover the process from application to occupancy. We're hoping that the information and advice we offer in these videocasts will make the permit process as efficient as possible and the construction phase run as smoothly as possible. The primary reason for this webcast, and the reason we're talking about authorities having jurisdiction, is our ordinance requires all authorities that have a jurisdiction to approve the project prior to our issuance of a permit. Therefore, it's really critically important that all authorities that have jurisdiction be determined as early as possible in the design process so the proper design can be resolved and presented for permit. The codes and ordinances that apply to a project are going to be determined by the authorities that have jurisdiction. As you know, they can and very often do have different codes and unique ordinances that could apply. Conflicting provisions can have a major impact on the design of a project. For example, it's not unusual for some fire districts in the county to require that all new construction be sprinkled. This can occur even when our code does not require fire sprinklers. If this is the case, there's a possibility that the owner could save money by reducing the proposed construction type, given the fact that the building will be sprinkled. And if this is not identified until the time of application, there'll be delays in the project as sprinkler drawings are prepared, local fire districts are applied to for permit, review process, and corrections occur. Other authorities that have jurisdiction may have provisions that could restrict the size of an addition, regulate the elevation of a living floor, mandate the use of specific materials. These would be primarily authorities like FEMA and the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency. Again, if these provisions are only identified at the time of application, significant delays in the permit process will result. Could be major impact to design and frustrations for all involved as we wait for other authorities that have jurisdiction to review. The involvement of other authorities that have jurisdiction will also affect submittal requirements. Normally we're looking for 3 sets of permit documents. If Illinois EPA or the Army Corps or other agencies involved, there could be as many as 7 sets of documents required. There could be other submittal requirements like pollution prevention control plans, best management practice documents, and other key documents required by these jurisdictions. Having these prepared ahead of time is really important, again, to the proper and efficient processing of permits. Finally, review times can vary significantly. If we have a project, again, at time of application, we identify an outside agency such as FEMA or the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and they're going to be a required authority and their approval or permit is necessary. We have no control over those review times, and those review times can be significant. And again, our review process will normally wait until those other authorities have approved for permit. There's really 2 primary ways to determine those authorities. One is based on the site. The primary authority having jurisdiction will be the one that has jurisdiction over the actual property in question. This is most easily determined by looking at a tax bill or speaking with the owner. Certainly if the owner's had permit experience in the past, that would be helpful. If not, looking at a tax bill for the taxing districts that are included will give you some idea of the other authorities that have jurisdiction. Our recommendation is not to go by the postal address. The postal address is not reliable in terms of determining the authority having jurisdiction. For instance, you can have an address inside Chicago that lists Chicago as your address and not actually be within the incorporated boundaries of the city of Chicago. The best way to determine the primary authority having jurisdiction is through the PIN or the property index number. All properties in the county are assigned a 14-digit PIN number. We have a zoning software search program on our website that will let you enter the PIN to determine the zoning. If a response comes back with a letter number like R2, you're under our jurisdiction. If the computer responds with no records, then you're more than likely in someone else's jurisdiction. Almost all properties are going to require contact with the local fire district. Almost all permits will require their involvement and approval. They typically issue permits, waiver letters, or review letters. They need to be identified and spoke with early in the process. Another typical authority having jurisdiction on projects that we see are the parkway authorities. In unincorporated Cook County, this tends to be the Township Highway Commissioner, but could include people like the Illinois Department of Transportation if the property fronts on a state highway, for instance. And any project that involves curb cuts, driveways, site development, utility work that occurs in the parkway will require their permit or approval. New construction requires address verification from the 911 center. Any project with septic or well involvement will require the Cook County Department of Public Health to issue permit. Be particularly careful about floodplain, floodway, wetland, or otherwise protected property. These tend to be the longest in reviews and can include FEMA and reviews from the Army Corps of Engineers. And then again, there's also things to pay attention to, like the FAA. The FAA may be authority that has jurisdiction when looking at a tall structure or a cell tower, a billboard, something of unusual height. So after you've looked at the site to determine what authorities may have jurisdiction, the next best place to look is at the scope of the work. The building renovation and new construction work itself will be under the authority of the primary authority having jurisdiction. Again, site work that involves the parkway. If your property or scope of work involves disturbing an acre or more of land, then the Illinois EPA is involved. Again, IDOT and FEMA may be involved based on the scope of site work. Demolition work must be approved by the Cook County Department of Environmental Control prior to our issuing of a permit. Projects that include wells, septic fields, swimming pools will require prior approval of the Cook County Department of Public Health. Water and sewer on site, of course, will require approval from local authorities, including ComEd or the Power Authority. And then it's also important to look for special things that may happen. Cell towers, for instance, as I mentioned earlier, are approved by the FAA. Billboards may require special action of the zoning board. If a project includes fuel tanks, then the state fire marshal gets involved. We've processed permits for circuses and carnivals and picnics that involve carnival rides, where state permits are required for the rides to demonstrate their safety and its recent inspection. And then some simple projects like signing may also require special action of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So once we've determined the authorities having jurisdiction, if the authority is determined to be us, unincorporated Cook County, we start with the PIN number. The PIN number, the property index number, is like a social security number for properties. By the way, information at the assessor's office, the recorder of deeds, and most of Cook County records are organized by PIN. Looking at a tax bill and looking at the taxing districts, you'll see tax districts for municipal, fire, water, sewer, in addition to places, agencies like schools and police. Again, that'll give you a clue to which authorities have jurisdiction over a project. The zoning classification search program on our website, that's cookcountygov.com. Click on agencies, scroll down to building and zoning, you'll see a page titled zoning classification search. If you enter that page and you enter the 14-digit PIN, it'll respond with the zoning district we've assigned to it or an indication of no records. If you get that zoning district letter number, that's an important thing to keep in mind and keep with your project records along with the PIN number. Again, look to the Parkway Authority or Environmental Control where you have demolition work. The Cook County Department of Public Health is another important agency to review. At FEMA.gov, that's FEMA.gov. There's a wonderful map program that FEMA maintains that clearly shows all the restricted areas for floodplain, floodway, an important resource to check before you apply for permit here. We are the authority that has jurisdiction in the unincorporated areas of Cook County. That is those areas that are not within the boundaries of a city or suburb fall under our jurisdiction. We recommend your first step would be to go to our zoning classification search, determine the zoning assigned to your property to determine bulk regulations. These would include setbacks, FAR, maximum maximum square footage allowed on a site. Those kinds of zoning requirements are listed there. Speak with the county highway commissioner about any work on your site. See if he requires a permit or has regulations that apply. Go to the local fire district, check primarily for sprinklering, but you also want to check whatever other requirements they may have. Go to the county code book then to find your building regulations as part of your code analysis. Bear in mind the IEPA will be involved if you're disturbing an acre or more. If it's protected in any way, we have to get FEMA involved. And then typically you'll either be at the Cook County Department of Public Health for well and septic, or you'll be talking to your utility and service providers for your water and sewer service and taps connections. Don't forget gas and electrical utilities also are authorities that may have jurisdiction or regulations that apply to your project. In unincorporated Cook County, the governing codes and ordinances that apply start with the Cook County Zoning Ordinance of 2001. It basically covers, as most zoning ordinances do, uses and bulk regulations. Start by looking at setbacks for restricted areas. You can also check for parking requirements and FAR. We do not have provisions that regulate impervious surfaces, but we do regulate the total amount of square foot on a site through FAR. This may require the design team to do some simple and brief calculations to determine what might be allowable and not according to the zoning ordinances. The zoning ordinance does allow variances. If you have problems with setbacks, parking, or FAR, it would probably be wise to consult with us to determine how to proceed with zoning variances. Bear in mind that special uses, non-conforming existing uses, and other possible project types exist in the zoning ordinance, which is why it's important to check it out as early as possible in the design process. So the first one that applies is the Cook County Zoning Ordinance of 2001. The actual building code that applies, the governing building code, is titled the Cook County Building and Environmental Ordinance of 1997. That's the hardbound copy. There's a paperback amendment that's dated February of '09 that also applies. The Cook County Building and Environmental Ordinance contains all the provisions for the building, fire safety, exiting, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, site work. It's all contained in the Cook County Building and Environmental Ordinance. You should note that our code is a unique code. It is not based on a model code. It uses different nomenclature than the IBC and BOCA and other model codes. And it is not available for viewing online. We do have contact information on our website for the publisher. It is Index Publishing. That can be reached at 312-644-7800. And you may purchase a copy through the publisher. We're told that there are a few libraries in the county that also carry the book, and certainly we have the codes and ordinances that apply here in our office. Anybody that care to can make an appointment, come down and view our ordinance books here at our office for their analysis. We of course also enforce the 2009 International Energy Conservation Code. We adopted this by ordinance amendment in February of '09. It applies to all new work, and as all authorities having jurisdiction, we look for demonstrated compliance. There's really three paths to compliance in that book. There's the prescriptive path, the U-factor alternative path, and the performance path. No matter which is chosen, it must be clear in the documents how we're going to comply, and all supporting documentation must be submitted along with the permit documents. The other code that we enforce, of course, is the Illinois Accessibility Code. You should note that it is not the same as the ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act code, and in fact it is more stringent in some areas than the ADA. It applies to all public facilities and multi-story housing. So unless it's a single-family resident permit application, the Illinois Accessibility Code should be reviewed and analyzed for provisions that might apply. On top of this, your code analysis and zoning analysis should include the critical code provisions, as we mentioned, from the other authorities having jurisdiction. All of these need to be looked together in order to provide the best design solution and to have the best chance at an efficient and effective permit process. Common issues that we run across, it's too often that at time of application we are informing the design team of the other authorities that have jurisdiction. This is very frustrating when it happens, not only for us, because the permit application will sit really unreviewed until other authorities have approved, but it's a very frustrating delay for the owner and the design team. At point of application, they think they've really reached a finish line, when in fact they're finding out they're really just at the starting line of several other authorities. So it's really important to check those other authorities as early as possible and resolve those conflicts as early as possible. The most common one we see is really local fire districts that require sprinklers or other devices and features be added to the project. Again, if we find that at time of permit application, for the owner to wait the weeks it takes to prepare the sprinkler documents, have them submitted to the fire district, give them their review time, respond to their comments, and get their permit, you're talking a pretty lengthy delay. The other one that's most common, I believe, is when we run across floodplain, floodway, or otherwise protected properties. This opens up FEMA, Army Corps, and Illinois EPA reviews, and those can be very lengthy and more lengthy than sprinkler reviews. In addition, have more restrictive more restrictive building regulations. If FEMA is going to regulate the height and elevation of living floors, if that's not been addressed in the design documents, obviously that represents a major revision to drawings. FEMA might also restrict the total amount of building on a site to a number less than the zoning ordinance, and if that's again discovered at time of permit application, there's a major delay and rework that's required. The other common problem we see is when documents are submitted to us and they're listing the International Building Code as the applicable code. Again, we use completely different nomenclature for things like occupancy classes and construction types. We have different fire-resistive construction requirements, different allowable areas, and when a drawing comes in, it may be in compliance with the with the International Building Code, but it's impossible for us to review if there is a mistake in the occupancy class or construction type that's listed. So those are the important issues to bear in mind and make sure they're addressed before the permit application reaches our office. If you have questions or comments about this, please contact us. You can either do that by email or directly contact me. My name is Frank Gorski. I'm the Chief Plan Examiner and can be reached at 312-603-0502 or at frank.gorski, Gorski, @cookcountyil.gov. Thank you.